I just want to let everybody know that I'm kind. I'm not nice. I'm kind. Okay, but I'm not nice. And if you are not nice to me, I won't even be kind.
Program. Cognitive dissonance. Spoken. Start. Bleeding heart liberals with obvious viciousness. How they define freedom's an ominous disconnect. Financial problems, since the lobbyist fix is in. No gun control, unless you're black or indigenous. Strongly revisionist, uncannily inaccurate. Nothing of worth on earth unless they're ransacking it. Morals are like their money. There's nothing backing it. Unless in the global south, then look at the map again. Democracy dies with a U.S. coup attacking it. Asylum seeker? You've heard of power vacuums then. An ice against immigration is human trafficking. Night falls like broken glass, and still we push back against cognitive dissonance. Fuck the eugenics of unmasked medics. And politics fetish with our obstetrics. They're calling off metrics while hauling off ethics. And then pretending as if they hadn't said shit. Many more sad songs not on the set list. Not for myself, but I've got a death wish. Unalive cult they'll get us if we let this quiet part out loud be said whole-chested. Epigenetics is Jans with this stress, yes? Have any guesses why everything's a mess? It's cognitive dissonance. Evangelicals are having a CrossFit. Eyes are on the revelations, back to the boss bit. Call Saul. Maybe he can help you with that blindness. Against a feather, you about to see those scales tipped. How those tables should be, need I remind, flipped. But you're still squeezing camels through needle's eye, rip. Reps and priests, both robbers, all the neighborhood alms stripped. You forgot the red words, the Beatitudes, not it. Transubstantiation, oil to blood, as the wine sipped. Now walking through the Holy Land, such a mind trip, boom. Every time a fam walks past their new lines, it dooms false believers, unless they can rewind this cognitive dissonance. Program end. Program begin. The focused on infinity hour. Mistrix start. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Focused on Infinity Hour, more or less. I am Logan Grendel, your host, aka Lara Lidocaine, and a number of other things. Today, we're going to be talking about capitalism, my friends. Capitalism, everyone's favorite system, the best system that this world has ever devised, right? We grew up thinking that we lived in the best country, the most advanced country, the most successful country that humanity has ever devised. And while in some ways, some extremely limited ways, for an extremely limited subsection of the population, that's kind of true. It was a lie, wasn't it? Wasn't it a lie? Didn't we all get got real bad? And we didn't realize also that in order to build it, it had to be built on top of someone, on top of a lot of someone's, on top of millions of someone's, in fact. Right? And capitalism ties together all of the other things in the 12 values, but unlike class reductionists think, it is not something that can be dealt with all by itself without actually addressing all of the individual ways that they fight us in controlling us through capitalism. Right? Capitalism is not exactly the final boss. It's just the umbrella under which they put kind of everything else, which is why we're talking about it first. And you know what I wanted to do? I made a video about this, which you may have seen, so if you've already heard the story, just bear with me. I just yesterday had to make a call to a credit card company because I made a big payment to them to, I thought that was what you're supposed to do, like actually pay the bills that you have. Hey. But after a long time, I had paid off the bill and then I wasn't able to use the card. And when I called them, and believe me, I had to fight to actually talk to someone, okay? We're talking about having to go through the AI. First they were like, use our AI agent. And I was like, I don't want your AI agent. Give me something else. And they were like, oh, okay, go to this website. Click on this, contact us on our website, and then that'll give you a number. I clicked on that, there wasn't any number. It actually took me back to the fucking AI agent again. So, look, I'm going through pillar and post, which, really just through clicking around on the site. And finally I get to a number that I can call because I'm trying to talk to somebody. Because I, back in the day, you used to be able to call a company and talk to someone and be like, oh, okay, well, I know that this is the rules or whatever, this is what the system does, these are, but here is my situation, can you do something? And generally a little bit of personal touch would actually grease the wheels to some extent, right? This is a lost art, and it's not just a lost art, it's like an intentionally elided art, right? They don't want us to use that art. They do not want human connection to change anything because they would rather whatever their arbitrary bullshit fucked up rules are that get them the most money and steal the most from us, they want that to be the thing that wins the day. And guess what it is? In a really short period of time too, historically speaking, right? We're not talking about eons ago. Remember that all this is really new, right? Especially the version of capitalism that we have now where it is fully metastasized into this horrid beast. And, they say fascism is capitalism in decline. Let's just always remember that when you think about what's going on now. And think about every single one of the tendrils of capitalism that we have let slide in order to get to where we are now, where everybody is actually feeling it. And they're actually doing too much, and that's going to be their downfall. But anyway, so finally I talked to a person, and I tell them the whole story. I'm like, look, I paid off the thing so that I could use it, and I thought that would actually help my credit score and be a good business relationship with you. And I was told repeatedly, first by the first person I talked to, and after they gave me the same rigmarole, then I was like, you know what, I'm not going to hassle you anymore. I know you're barely getting paid, whatever it is you're getting paid. Judging by their accent, I don't even think that they were in this country. And so I was like, let me speak to a supervisor, please. I am invariably polite to service people. And big red flag. Anybody you know who is willing to be rude to service people, I don't know. It is almost never the person's fault that you're talking to that whatever is happening to you is happening. Okay, remember that. Unless it is literally directly their fault, which it probably isn't, it's not at all their fault. And it's probably above their pay grade. Ask to speak to somebody whose at least job it is to handle like people being pissed off, right? So anyway, I get to the supervisor and I say the same thing. I'm like, blah, 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 thing, and like, okay, and they're like, oh yes, well, because you paid more than you usually do, according to our system, we flagged that and we have denied access to your account for like about a month. And so I was like, you realize that means you're penalizing me. You're penalizing me for giving you money because I gave you too much money, not too little money. Does that make any sense to anyone? No. Well, except, and here's the thing. I want y'all to keep this in mind when you're thinking about capitalism. It's not complicated. It's convoluted. Because it actually makes sense in the end. Because what they would most prefer is that everyone run it all the way up to where it's like almost at or over the limit, and then only pay the minimum. So that they on their books are going to be getting X extra amount of money for the rest of your natural life. And then afterwards, if they can saddle one of your, your descendants with it, which they will fucking try to. You know this. I know this. We know this, right? So, at the end of the day, the person couldn't tell me anything more than the AI would have, even though I would refuse to talk to the AI, than the person underneath them could have. And so at the end, I was just like, hey, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is, right? And that reminded me of just how fucked up all of this is. Because, look, I am not wealthy or anything like that, right? Like, I am doing what I can do. And I know that I have some points of privilege, but a lot of it is just that I was, fortunate enough to be in a position to build up a business where I can make a transition into being a professional content creator and artist and just do organizing and do that for the rest of my life, right? But like that's a lot of money to just hand over and not be able to have access to because I'm trying to do the right thing, right? Because there is no reward for doing the right thing under this system. Because they want to extract the most they can from you. And if they can't extract it from you through just charging you exorbitant fees for the rest of your life, they'll do it through enslaving you. Or they'll do it through... There is some way that this system is going to get everything it can from you. Right? And at every turn. At every single turn. You're not just going to have to pay one person. You're going to have to pay another person. Right? To get your own money out of the bank, you have to go to if you don't want to go to the teller and stand in the line and do the whole thing, you have to go to an ATM. Okay, you got to pay to get your own money that you lent to the bank, right? The bank is doing all kinds of stuff with the money you put in there, right? They're making investments. They can declare it as one of their assets, and also, not for nothing, since our entire economy is a Ponzi scheme, right? They can say, based on what you have put in the bank, that they have 10 times more than that for the purpose of their credit and their business dealings, whatever it is, whatever speculation that the bank is doing. They're using your money to make money, and they're charging you to get your own money out, right? And if you try to pay them back the money that they've lent you, then they put a hold on it because you tried to pay too much. And it's suspicious. It's suspicious that I gave you money. Okay. You're supposed to be, because of this system. The system wants you to be bedraggled. It wants you to be confused. It wants you to not be able to fight and question each of these individual things. And that's part of how it gets you. It's part of how it gets all of us. There's a conversation about how our attention spans have been destroyed by social media, and I think it is definitely partially social media. Like, it is, right, of course. But I think it's also that the average person is supposed to be, and that's why there's so much individualism pushed in this society. They want everyone to be a cishet white man. Now, follow me for a second, right? They want us all individually to make our own meals, to have our own place, to cook, to wash, to do all of the stuff that gets them our money, right? They want us all to be these little individual units. And if it's a family unit, okay, fine, that's fine too. But the amount of stuff that the individual has to do is exorbitant. It is, it's disgusting how much we're expected to have to do every day. One person, if you can't, I'm going to say this to you, and I want you to really hear me and believe me. There is nothing wrong with you, baby, if you can't get everything done. If you feel like at the end of the day, you never have enough time, that like the house isn't clean, you've had to order food because like you can't make yourself 3 meals a day, you can't manage to get the thing to the mailbox that you've intended to, the laundry has been sitting in the pile for X period of time, you haven't had time to sit down and read a book. That's by design. Capitalism is extractive by nature. It is not built for humans. It is built for a small subsection of gamers, essentially, power gamers who are willing to do whatever it takes to win by the rules of this system. It is inherently inhuman. And one of the reasons I believe that our attention spans are beaten to shit is because there's too many things to pay attention to. We don't have a village of people. We don't have the support to actually focus on any of the things we're doing. We're always multitasking, right? So obviously, again, social media is part of the problem, and more than social media, let's call it what it is. It's algorithms. The algorithms are the problem, right? If you are on anything like Mastodon or any of the social media sites that don't have algorithms, I bet you spend less time on those. Why? Because you don't have an algorithm manipulating your mind to get you to stay on there, right? Also feeding you ads. Also doing all this extra shit to keep you there. If you want to find something, you got to go find it. And when it stops being interesting, you just put it down and you go do something the fuck else. That's how social media should be. Think about that. Don't let them ruin the tools that we have, right? Because of capitalist oppression. We're going to talk a little bit more about capitalism towards the end of the show. But for now, I want to thank you again for being here for our 24th episode. This is the first of our 12 Values episodes on one of the 12 values, this one being, of course, why you should be anti-capitalist. And if you're not, kindly log off and go read a book, baby. Go read a book, read 2 books. Find a YouTube about it, okay? Do something. Go learn you something. Because defending capitalism in this day, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It really is. You should be embarrassed. It's a bad take and you should feel bad. But for now, we're going to shift gears and go right into our weekly look at what's going on in the stars and the planets in our solar system with our very own excellent and amazing Alice Pope of Alice Pope Astrology.
Happy almost Gemini season, folks. And in true Gemini fashion, welcome to a busy-ass week in the stars. Thankfully, this one is full of mostly helpful transits, so I hope we can make good use of this cosmic energy and all the opportunities it brings to us this fast-paced week. The busiest day of the week is actually today, Monday, May 18th. Earlier today, the planet Mars entered the sign of Taurus. So hopefully some of that very aggro energy we've been feeling lately will start to calm down a bit. We can definitely still tap into the courage and drive of Mars, but now in a more patient and grounded way to fight for the peace, comfort, and stability that Taurus wants for everyone. Of course, this transit also means our feelings of anger might just become more stubborn, slow to activate, but hard to stop. So let's just be careful what we dig our heels in about over the next 5-ish weeks of Mars in Taurus. Next up, Venus has moved from Gemini into Cancer, and I'm hoping this will bring a bit more calm and quiet to counterbalance the very chaotic energy of Gemini season coming up. The fertile, creative, imaginative waters of Cancer can feed the artistic creativity and material abundance of Venus. Our values might turn more toward caring, nurturing, healing, resting. And this especially applies to our close bonded relationships, particularly with family, whether blood or chosen or of whatever kind. The risk there is clinging, smothering, overprotecting. So maintaining good relational boundaries will be helpful to keep in mind, especially over the next few weeks. And all of that is echoed by the moon following Venus into its home sign of Cancer just a little while ago, actually. Speaking of which, in a few hours from now, Venus will form a sextile to Mars between 0 degrees of Cancer and Taurus. So we can harness the energy of Mars to set those boundaries, to deal with issues arising in our relationships and resources, while Venus can help us to recalibrate our motivations as we go through all of these shifts. And of course, with the feminine and masculine planets contacting each other in this stimulating way, we get a fun chance to play around with gender, sexuality, and so on. We have one more noteworthy transit happening late tonight with Mercury sextiling Neptune from 3 degrees of Gemini to 3 degrees of Aries. And this is a bit of a different vibe from today's other transits. As the mental planet stimulates the planet of dreams, we might experience more psychic or mystical phenomena. We can access more spiritual knowledge, dreams, visions, and intuition, or just think in a more compassionate and boundless kind of way. Okay, tomorrow, Tuesday, May 19th, brings us another helpful Mercury transit as the speedy messenger of the gods forms a trine to Pluto from 5 degrees of Gemini to 5 degrees of Aquarius. This flow of air signs helps to deepen our thinking as we unpack hidden truths. Pluto can help to renew, heal, and empower our minds, especially if we're willing to engage with some form of shadow work, ideally through speaking or writing. And that could look like a psychological conversation, a juicy journaling session, or speaking truth to power in some way. The Mercury vibes will continue on Wednesday, May 20th, when the sun enters Gemini and Gemini season begins. So happy birthday to all our Gemini babies out there. Gemini is the mutable air sign, so it's all about the transformation of ideas, right? It's symbolized by the talkative twins, so it has to do with communication, as well as platonic relationships between siblings, friends, neighbors, etc. And Gemini is ruled by the mental planet Mercury, which is appropriately very active this week. Now, this is a season for curiosity and conversation, for learning and teaching and sharing, for expressing ourselves through language and listening too, for engaging with information and media. Now, you may have noticed that we already live in a very overstimulating, fast-paced Gemini kind of age, in my opinion. So in order to not get completely overwhelmed here, we do want to make a point of continuing to check in with ourselves, slow down, get grounded, set boundaries, and be intentional about where we're putting our precious resources of energy, attention, and time. Please don't just spend the next fucking month doom scrolling, in other words. I'm hoping that Mars in Taurus and Venus in Cancer, which sandwich the sign of Gemini, can help us to balance some of this frenetic, scattered energy. And I'd also love to see us put this Gemini season to good use by getting to know our neighbors and getting more plugged into our local communities, in addition to our local Wi-Fi connections. And on Wednesday evening, the moon will move along into warm, vibrant, expressive Leo. Now, late in the evening of Thursday, May 21st, and that's early Friday morning if you're not here on the West Coast with me, we will face the most challenging transit of this week, folks. As Venus moves to 3 degrees of Cancer, it'll form a square to Neptune, still sitting there at 3 degrees of Aries. So our sense of internal balance and emotional regulation will probably be at least partially dissolved by the planet of boundless anxiety. Yay! We might be feeling really out of sorts around this time. Maybe facing creative blockages or just like feeling a lack of energy and well-being, kind of drained. We definitely might encounter illusions and delusions in our relationships and our finances, even in our values. Neptune in Aries is calling us to act, to bravely fight for compassion and interconnectedness, as I've talked about before. But Venus in Cancer might just want to hide under the covers instead. So there could be some internal conflict here. And Venus, which seeks pleasure and comfort, might activate the avoidant escapist tendencies of an overwhelmed Neptune. So do be careful about any addictive leanings you have, especially this week. Now, on Friday, May 22nd, the focus shifts back to Mercury and Gemini things. First of all, we'll have a Uranus cazimi with the Sun conjunct Uranus at 1 degree of Gemini. And this is the first time that Uranus will be in the spotlight since it entered Gemini late last month. The Sun will highlight the fresh perceptions and revolutionary mindset of Uranus and Gemini. And this electrifying transit really asks us to shed a layer or two of programming and conditioning to connect more deeply with our weird, authentic selves. But the tricksters, the misinformers and disinformers, the propagandists and the tech bros will also get a boost of energy with this transit, so proceed with caution. And as always with Uranus, expect the unexpected. Friday may end up bringing some sudden or shocking developments, so we'll have to see about that. Thankfully, though, Gemini's ruler Mercury might be bringing us more good news on this day as it forms a sextile to Saturn from 11 degrees of Gemini to 11 degrees of Aries. And this can bring some much needed stability to our overstimulated minds, helping us to ground, focus, and structure our thoughts and our words to set those important mental boundaries. So Friday could be a good day to harness Saturn's effort and self-discipline for our thinking and communication toward revolutionary aims. Finally, in the last few minutes of Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on your time zone, the moon will enter service-oriented, practical, analytical Virgo. Saturday, May 23rd is actually the only day this week not featuring any noteworthy transits. And then Sunday, May 24th will bring us one more hopefully helpful event to wrap up the week as the Sun sextiles Neptune from just under 4 degrees of Gemini to the same degrees of Aries. This brings an energetic boost to Neptune after that challenging Venus square and just the scattered energy of this week and this time of year. We may feel our spiritual courage and brave compassion being renewed. And the Sun's rays can feed those bold dreams and creative visions of Neptune and Aries, while Gemini opens us up to the endless possibilities of a better world and what we need to learn to make that happen. Okay, that's all for this week's Astrological Weather Report. I'm Alice Pope. Logan, back to you.
A lot of people are looking for like the big idea and the big thing to join and like the big thing to get behind, but it's ideas like this one up here that are really going to get us to where we need to go. Now, as you know, I do not, nor do I ever recommend anything illegal, but there are plenty of things that you can do, that you should start doing. Connect with people online that have ideas and strategies, right? In safe places, we're talking like Discord groups, we're talking private Signal groups, we're talking Mastodon, right? Find your people, find them online, because finding online community is going to help you bring those things into your offline world. And a lot of people are still like, no, the internet doesn't matter. It's just not true. Like, that's why they're trying to ban this app, right? Because without this app, so many of us wouldn't have met each other. There's so many things. Think about how many things you wouldn't know if it weren't for this app, right? The online world is the real world. If you are a person with the complexion for the protection and you are wondering what you can do, here's an idea. You know all those folks who are working for CBP and ICE? Those people have families. You're related to some of them, right? And you know who they are. You have been kind of letting them get a pass for years because they clearly didn't just become bad people. They've already had at least you could see the glimmer of a fascist there. And you probably said, oh, they're just cosplaying. Like when they go with their friends to LARP on weekends, like they're just LARPing with all those weird plate characters, and you made fun of them and you ignored the fact that it's not cosplay, it's practice. And now they're doing it for real. You can make these people's life hell, just like they're making everyone else's life hell. They're out there breaking up families. So why aren't you willing to break up your family a little bit to out the fascists? There has to be a cost, right? Y'all are not making there enough of a cost for them to do what they're doing. They're going out, destroying families, destroying lives, beating people up, grabbing people off the street, all masked up, and you just let them come home and eat a nice meal with you. Why? Why are you letting that happen? There's two reasons. One, you're a fascist too, and you don't want to admit it. Two, you're afraid. The second one, I can maybe understand, but guess who's more afraid than you are? Everybody that doesn't look like you. As a person who grew up mostly around white folks, I know that the most difficult thing for y'all can be creating social strife, right? Even if somebody walks in the room who is a known abuser, right? It would be more awkward for you to stand up and yell, that person is an abuser, than it would for you to not say anything. Even though you know that if that person walks into the event, the party, whatever, it's likely that somebody's going to get abused by them in some way, psychologically, physically, whatever, right? Y'all have been groomed by a deeply, deeply sick and sad society. But now is your fucking chance. No dates, no meals, no chit chats, no text, no how you doing messages, none of that. You have to make there be a cost. And I don't think they're going to be willing to pay it, because to be that kind of person, you have to be a coward to begin with. You have to be a follower. Those who believe that might makes right are inherently cowards, because that's the easier route, especially if you just happen to be born in a larger sized body and you are physically imposing, right? You have to be a coward to walk up to somebody and destroy their family for a couple of dollars. You have to make there be a cost for what they're doing. It's not something I can do. It's not something that we can do. We BIPOC, we people of the global majority, we can't do that work. You have to.
Hello, and welcome to this week's installment of Lara Listens, a delve into my vinyl collection, in which I share with you one or two albums that you should check out. Because why? You know why. Because we need our own media. We need physical media, because we can't trust the streaming services, and we can't trust them to let us have access to. Everything's gone digital, babes. Everything's digital. Unless you have physical media. And that includes an MP3 player loaded with MP3s or something. Just something that you have that they can't take away from you. And I like to bring to you, these albums so that, first of all, it's just like to share a bit of what's going on in my brain musically, what I might be listening to, introduce you to new stuff, and also just share with you. But also because this is a great way for us to talk about the art that makes up our world and our lives, and in a place where it's still connected and aligned in terms of all of the values. That's what we should be looking for now, right? Is places where we can talk about all the stuff that we love, but where we don't have to essentially forsake who we are deeply in order to do that, right? We can have groups where we talk about music or movies or art, but we don't have to avoid political conversations in doing so, because in doing that we're just lying. It's like, how can you really talk about anything without talking about politics, right? But we're going to have a short and sweet Lara Listens this week, in which I share with you 2 albums, the first being this one. Now, this is Jazz Samba with Stan Getz and Charlie Bird. It is such a fucking vibe. I can't even begin to tell you. Okay, it's just there's really not much to talk about it because there's not like lyrics or anything. But Charlie Bird and Stan Getz, by the way, are just 2 like phenoms, and they combine. Stan Getz does Jets Gilberto is maybe where you've heard of him the most. It's like another one, but this is a combination of jazz music and samba music, so it's like a little bit more accessible in some ways than jazz can be because it's also got the samba element, which just kind of makes you want to groove a little bit. And it's jaunty, it's light, and it's really fun. I highly recommend this album. Let me just show you the back, which is just boom boom, a little bit of this here, and also the inside, which just has there we go, and a little info on everyone. Really love this album. It's one that I put on like I always listen to vinyl albums every Sunday. Vinyl Sundays are still a thing. I don't know if you've been following me since like 2020 or whatever. You remember that used to be a feature. It's still a thing here in the actual house. Mistrix and I were just listening to this on Sunday, just vibing while we were doing other things. But it's a great album to put on. And also, if you're like a music aficionado, it's one you can get into and listen to more deeply because the level of musicality, top fucking tier. Jazz Samba with Stan Getz and Charlie Bird. Get into it. And next we have Steely Dan. I bet you didn't know I was going to pull that one out. But fucking great album. Asia, or I mean, I thought it was Aja, but I think it's Asia because that's how it's pronounced in the song. The eponymous song? No, eponymous is the wrong word. Eponymous is when it's named after the band. Okay, you know what I mean. But also, an interesting little tidbit, and one of the things I talk about a lot is how even when we don't realize it, there is a lot of cultural exchange between different genres of music. And yes, it all came from, in America, all music basically came from black people, like 9 times out of 10, right? With a little bit of like some ethnic white folks back in the old country somewhere, sometimes, but usually from black folks. But even in that, there is cultural exchange between, people would think of Steely Dan as as like a white band, right? But now, if there's a song, the song, the first song on this album is called Black Cow, and it's got this really great bass line. It's like, well, you know what? I'm not gonna sing it because that won't do it justice. But it was used, and I believe 97-ish, in a really well-known rap song. And even if you don't know the song, there's a part where it's like, and if it wasn't for the Bronx, this rap thing probably wouldn't still be going on. So where you from? Uptown, baby. That uses a sample prominently from Black Cow by Steely Dan. Okay, so there is ample exchange of music between musicians, white, black, whoever, of all genres, right? And it's funny when people try to gatekeep music. And I remember, growing up, people said this kind of music was for this kind of person. And I just never cared about any of that. Like, who cares, really? It sounds good, I'm going to listen to it. And that's the thing, is that we all do that, right? There is an American series of identities. And I really feel like us understanding that actually will help us to unwrite the harmful stuff that we all, as Americans, have in us, right? Because American exceptionalism runs through people of every ethnicity in this country. And we think of ourselves in unique ways that make us very distinctly more American than we ever will be any ethnicity, especially those of us who are just from here, right? Who've just always lived here. And that goes across ethnicities. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because it's like, no, don't count me in this. Sorry, baby. You had the same propaganda. We all heard the same propaganda. But anyway, it's It's a really, really chill album with some great songs. The song Asia, by the way, it's like math rockish at points. There's a lot of shifts in music. The drums go so unbelievably hard. It's just a really, really good album to listen. Put it on, check it out, and vibe to it, right? And it's also just cool to know that also Black Cow was also used, I believe, in a Beyonce song more recently as well, and in I think it was Kool Keith. I think it was Kool Keith, or wait, no, MF Doom. MF Doom also used a sample from Black Cow in one of his songs. Also, if you don't know MF Doom and you like rap, like I think if there was a Mount Rushmore of rap, and actually I'm just now realizing how problematic calling anything the Mount Rushmore of anything is. Oop, again, American. Oops. Anyway, check out MF Doom because he's one of the best rappers that's ever lived. But he's more like a rapper for rappers than like a mainstream popular rapper. But if you are just interested in wordplay and what one can do with words and rhyming and cadence, check out MF Doom, including the song that he sampled from this, and that song Black Cow, Asia, Deacon's Blues, Peg, Home at Last, I Got the News, and Josie. Asia by Steely Dan. Get into it, babes. Get into it. And now for something different.
is a certain level of alienation. Level of alienation. Level of alienation.
The most anti-capitalist protest you can do is to care for another and to care for yourself. To take on the historically feminized and therefore invisible practice of nursing, nurturing, caring. To take seriously each other's vulnerability and fragility and precarity, and to support it, honor it, empower it. To protect each other, to enact and practice community. A radical kinship, an independent sociality, a politics of care. Wow!
Capitalism is a scam. It is not the best system. It is just a rebranding of every old bullshit feudalism that has ever existed. It is just another way, it is just the modern way for a bunch of really greedy, evil, tiny people to steal from the people, right? There's a small group of people that always seeks to wrest power, to take money and wield it as a god of some sort, right? Whether it's gold, whatever the currency of the time is, there's some way they have of using it to control us. They have us chasing it because, look whose face is on it, right? Whoever's face is on the money, that's your enemy. That's never your friend, okay? Because what we're talking about is a system where they own us from birth, and then we have to buy back our own life from them. Think about how messed up that is. Think about it, really, right? The idea that there is a wage that an hour of your life can cost. And guess what? In the United States of America, in the big 2026, an hour of your life is worth $7.25. I'm being silent for a reason. I want you to really think about how fucked up that is. $7.25. What can you, with the price of gas now, that's probably going to get you 1 gallon of gas. So you have to work for an entire hour for someone, making them obviously way more than $7.25, because look, if they weren't making more, right, they wouldn't hire you. They hire you for $7.25, and then they make an untold amount off of your labor. Surplus, right? Surplus value. That's yours. That's yours. You're being stolen from. Your life is being stolen from you by capitalism. It's just the truth. And we're born into a system already in play. We're born into a game. I always like to, when I talk about capitalism, I think about the Monopoly game. And if you know me, you know that I love games of all kinds. Video games, board games, card games, whatever it is. Whatever it is, love them. Monopoly is there as a fucking warning. It was made that way. It's not supposed to be fun. It's actually in a game form, right? In a game form, an anti-capitalist, it's an anti-capitalist game, right? Because what it's there to show you is that eventually someone is going to end up with all the money. And for the rest of the people playing the game, it's just going to be a slow attrition into poverty. Maybe jail. Right? It's right there in the game. But we somehow didn't learn that lesson. We didn't get that it was satire. And a lot of the things about capitalism, now it gets us to aspire to things that are at the end of the day just through other ways that capitalism controls us. Are you an artist? You've probably thought, I would love to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, or a Tony. Maybe the whole EGOT. Well, guess what? That's just capitalism. If you're a scientist, maybe you thought, wow, I'd really love to win a Nobel Prize. That's just capitalism. In fact, it's feudalism. You go to a king. You go to a king to get, as the wizard said in our the Wizard and the Witch piece, you go to a king to get a chunk of gold for the Nobel Prize, right? And who gets to get the Nobel Prize is also a matter of who the king likes and doesn't like. We are owned. We are controlled. We are pitted against each other in a game of Monopoly that we cannot win. We simply cannot win. Because guess what? Not only are we playing a game of Monopoly, we're playing it like 500 turns in. And the other thing is, guess what? There's a whole other set of cards that you don't even get access to if you are black, brown, an immigrant, indigenous, a woman, LGBTQ, etc. Right? And those restrictions have always been there, but it's as capitalism is in decline and removes all of the, the cosmetic niceties that it offers, right? And remember, liberalism is inherently capitalism. Liberals are capitalists, right? So are conservatives. Liberals and conservatives, the Democratic and Republican Party, they're both capitalist, right? Through and through. And liberalism is always intended to be a middle, right? And not even a middle in between the far left and the far right, right? It's a middle in between, like, left-ish and far right. And they will always capitulate to the far right because why? Because of capitalism. At the end of the day, if it's all about money and not about humanity, you're always going to lean to the green, as they say. Look, I am not the kind of person who thinks you shouldn't participate because, again, if we're gamifying things, you play every piece on the board. Sure. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to actually get us to a better world, to a livable world, to literally saving ourselves as a human species, is the end of capitalism. And that requires what? Divestment from it. Building alternative systems. All of the stuff we have done in the House of Infinity, the stuff we do, the stuff that I talk about everywhere I appear, whether it is in my work with dogs, whether it is in my work with gardens, in my art, in my music, whatever it is, it's always about, at the end of the day, rethinking the lies we have been told and building alternative systems concurrent to these, right? Because as the train of capitalism, it's going off the tracks, okay? It's going off the tracks, babes. And what we're doing right now is we're literally building a train alongside it that people can jump off onto, and we can head into a better future together, right? Or we stay on capitalism, keep trying to aspire to their false gods, to their money, to their dollars, to their billionaires, to their Met Galas, to their Oscars, to their Coachellas, right? We can keep aspiring to that, keep paying attention to it, keep feeding it, right? And we all die. And that's not hyperbole. Because look at, friends, it is really difficult to not get heavy about just how much fucking danger we're in. Because of capitalism. I mean, also because of misogyny, because of all the other things we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. We have 11 more weeks of the 12 values. We're going to talk about each of them. But because of capitalism, our world is being driven off the cliff because we treat... A great saying about the whole thing is that to a capitalist, a forest has no value until you've cut down the trees and they know how many trees there are and whether they can use them for firewood or to make paper or whatever else. or what else they could build on the land after all the trees are gone, after all the forest is gone. But a forest is not just a bunch of trees. It's a living, breathing part of the planet that we need. The Amazon forest has been called the lungs of the planet. And we're cutting those down. We're cutting out our own lungs for short-term gains because capitalists said, hey, don't blame me. I'm just a player in the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Guess what? I hate the players. You should too. And yeah, hate the game too. You know? But what we have to do is divest. We have to. We simply have to. And that requires, guess what? That requires you changing the way that you live and do things every single day henceforth. I don't know that we will be successful, but I know that we are supported by the planets, the stars, the gods themselves, by the times. We're supported by each other. I want to thank you all for being here with us for this episode of the Focused on Infinity Hour, more or less. And I want to thank everyone that is a part of this show. I want you to remember, we haven't, since we've changed our production flow, we haven't been posting people's pay links, but remember that this show is a labor of love and we want you to directly, financially support, if you can, anyone that you like that is on this show, right? And that includes yours truly. But really, find Square Symbols online, find Worm online, find Mistrix online, find Alice online, book a reading with Alice, book a reading, a tarot reading with myself, right? Just support people, right? Because the other thing is that people are going to continue to do and make things because art belongs to us, innovation belongs to us, all the things we do belong to us. And so us bringing them directly to each other and supporting each other directly, that's not capitalism. Commerce and capitalism are not the same thing. People are always going to want to make things and share their talents and do things, right? I want to thank you so much for continuing to follow along with me wherever I appear and with this show in specific. And I want you to help us grow the show by continuing to also, if you have something you'd like to share, if you are a musician, if you anything that you have to share, trust me, we can find a way to work it into the show. And I think it would be actually fun. And I've got some big ideas. We have some big ideas about how to make the show even more interesting and interactive in the future. And we're going to do them because it is so much fun to get to be able to have a show where I share art and music as well as just the real of what's going on in our world. And I'm so glad that you appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you next week.